No,
Hello. Hi. Welcome to another live streaming related to the Cratis Stack. Today we're gonna go and actually build a library, and it's not the type of library you might be thinking of. It's not the developer library that we're going to be using. We're going to build a software for an imaginary library. So that means books and stuff. So what we're going to do is actually build it from, starting from an event model, and we're going to build the event model as the first thing that we actually do. And from that, we're hopefully going to go and, translate that into some code. So without further ado, I think it's just for us to jump straight into it. What do you think, Sindra?
let's do it. I'm
Let's
ready.
do it. Cool, cool. So we have this Miro board, and the last time actually last Wednesday when we live streamed, we talked a little bit about the building blocks of basically event modeling. So we're not going to spend too much time on this. You can go to eventmodeling.org to dive more into this, and also the Understanding Event Sourcing book by Martin Dilger, which goes in depth on this whole thing. But today we just basically want to start with what we're going to do. First of all, is basically start building a storyboard. And the purpose of the storyboard is to kind of nail out the different events that we want to have or that we see is natural for this particular domain. And then we'll kind of start grouping those and figuring out how they actually fit into different features. And it's going to become a timeline of the most important thing that we need for the start for this project. So the way I see it, we haven't actually prepared all that much, but we have a few thoughts. And when we talk about library, we talk about, well, obviously it has books. And books, well, you need an author to actually have, well, to write the book. So I think that is kind of a natural starting point for this. Or would do you agree, Sindra?
Yes, they have more than books though. They have can have articles and DVDs.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. No. That's just crazy.
Yeah, music.
That's future. That's future. So when I grew up, libraries had books.
Okay.
I'm too old. Oh, I'm just kidding. Um,
Yeah, authors as well.
yeah, it wasn't. No, nowadays you might not have authors because of LLMs, but I don't. Yeah. Uh,
Right. Maybe it's like in Japan, like rent a girlfriend type of stuff.
oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. But I think if you think about it, like okay, we definitely need an inventory of books. So, but we also need to, in my head at least, kind of link those back to an author. So, um, I think kind of natural thing would be to think about how do we, well, maybe like so I can give it a shot here and just create an event and let's say author registered or something. Uh, Not going to care too much about properties on it right now. Um, that could be a thing, right? And
Mm.
also, then, okay, once we have an author, we definitely need kind of, well, we need maybe to be adding in, let's say, this is me thinking out loud, add book to inventory.
Is that a command or an event?
Oh, yes, sorry, book added to inventory. Of course, it's an event, so it has happened. So that would be kind of vital. So we have basically an inventory of books, and then link them back to authors in a way, right?
Mm.
So that would be a good start, I
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah, and since it's a library, I think well, the natural language thing would be book removed from inventory, but since it's a library, that doesn't really make sense. So it would probably be a book rented out or something.
Actually, that's more, I'm thinking that's more like reservations. It's
Yeah.
a kind of a separate, oh, it's not the reservation too, sorry. You have lenders, so you have someone who lends a book, and
Mm.
you have some kind of way of well, lending out a book, right? So it's
Yeah.
the inventory is what the library owns, right? So
Yes.
that's the entire catalog in a way.
Yeah, that's what. But so
Yeah,
out or so I think you can have both. Well, I think reserving might be another kind of functionality, like you can reserve a book, but that's different from actually picking it up and rent it.
yeah,
So you can reserve a book, but after a while you might not end up picking it up, and then it will be kind of at some point unreserved, and then it can be reserved or rented out to someone else.
yeah, exactly. So question is, so well, um, you have kind of lend it out, or you, yeah, lend or borrow it out.
But
So
I don't know what the language is. We're both not native English speakers, so
it's true. That is true. Let's just pretend we are.
yes, we
Uh,
are.
but from the discussion, I would say no matter what, we will need a lender registered as well because someone needs to lend it. So let's say we stick with the vocabulary of a lender and someone who lends that book, right?
Mm.
You would then have uh, book. Is that right? Lend it
That
out?
doesn't really sound right.
No, it doesn't. Hmm.
You can ask ChatGPT.
Oh, oh, that's true. That's true. Um, should I ask it, or do you want to
Yeah.
ask it?
Uh,
So let me see. Uh, so is this cheating?
no, no, it's just doing our work in a good way.
Okay, so in the domain of library, uh, a library, or what would you call the people lending a book? And what would be the event of the lending book from a library perspective? Is that a good question? Maybe?
Yeah, I think so. We could also that would be a cool idea. Like your the chat GPT thing is persistent. We
Yeah,
could context like you're a librarian. You work at the library. You're an expert in the domain, and then we can just ask for.
yeah. How
It's weird.
cool is this?
I've never worked in a library before, so
No,
I'm
no, no.
neither are you. I assume.
No, that is true. That is true. But how cool is that sentence? Want naming aligned to a specific architecture? For example, DDD or event sourcing?
Try
Yes.
event
Yes. Okay. So we are getting
check that.
something checked out. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have basically a check-in process or a checkout process and a check-in process.
Yeah.
Or yeah, loan or patron. Okay. Uh, Great.
I also think it might make sense in terms of the kind of stock keeping or of what kind of book or articles that you have to be able to be lend it out. 'Cause, it said something about like a book checked in
Yeah,
is different from having a book added to inventory. Like you can have multiples of the same book added to the inventory, but
yeah,
having availability is something it is different.
yeah, exactly. So this would typically point. So if you look at the inventory perspective, we would be adding a book to the inventory, and the author ID would be there, and there might be a count. So you add like 10 books of this type, right?
Yeah,
Um,
also, or maybe instead of the author ID, it will probably just have the unique ID for that book, like the ISBN.
yeah, but it's so the ISBN is for the book, and the author ID is who wrote it. Or do
Yeah, but
you?
if it's like the book added to inventory, if we have the book checked in first.
Yeah, but don't you think that is more the checked in is what we do after you've borrowed it and you're returning it?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I was just thinking about kind of the difference of having a new book added to your assortment, like a book that you haven't had before, could maybe be considered a bit different from having multiples of this of a book that you already have had in stock before. If you get that,
No, I'm not quite following
uh, like
because yeah,
the fact that you have a new book available at your library might be something that is worth capturing, besides just having that added to the inventory.
so as a uh, I'm still not quite following because um, so the inventory is what you have. So that's your if you start up a new library, you start kind of buying books to the library. Uh, I was kind of thinking that would be adding stuff to your inventory, but you're saying you would need
Yeah,
more?
like I mean, I might be thinking of the view perspective, the read model perspective a bit, or the kind of the if you think about the page where you wanna reserve a book on like a website or something, and uh, and you want to see the books that the library offers, and the book might or not be in stock. So it's kind of for that purpose for the library to know what are the different books that it has in stock, even if it has none in stock at the moment or not.
Yeah, so an example. So let me explain what I'm thinking here because I was thinking, let's say you have five added to this, and you get a checked out event. So typically a checked out in my head, let's call it lender ID. Um, so that means the so that's one, right? So that means the current stock becomes four, right? So that's kind of a projection.
Yeah,
Uh, this
yeah.
minus this equals
Mm,
this kind of thing. So we would then be looking at when the book checked in again, that would be, well, putting it back into that's not anything about the inventory. It's more about what you have in stock right now,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah. I think that makes sense.
But we can see where this goes. And if I only knew how to do this properly, I wouldn't have this problem. So my what is going on? I'm just trying to delete this. Isn't that possible?
Gone.
Thank you. Deleting is not my strong suit. So question becomes, is it a lender or is it a borrower? Uh, Because a member, library member. Maybe that's better, like a library member. And since it is library, we don't need to prefix it with library. It's just a member.
Yeah. Member registered.
Cool. Um,
For for the members, it might be like an overshoot, but we probably won't have like an onboarding kind of flow to it. It's probably just one do it all kind of register thing where you register yourself or whatever.
yeah, we can just well, we'll see where it goes, but I'm thinking. So if you look at a classical, like an old school system, you probably just type it in for now.
Yeah.
But we could have a self-service, of course, with an onboarding. Um, but that would be the same event in a way.
Yeah.
Cool. Uh, that would be so. If we look at this now, we have an author that is registered. We get a book added to the inventory, which is related to the author. We can have members being registered, and you can check out a book and you can check in the book, right? And of course, this would be so. Let's say ISBN is our key, right? Uh, like so. And that kind of gives us the okay, we have basically our inventory and the functionality for checking in and out books. Uh, then there is the question of reservation. I jumped the gun a little bit on that before. Uh, but that I think would be also very interesting. It's like, okay, I want to, okay, there's no more of that book in at the moment, so the stock is zero. But I want to reserve it for a future. I want to be put in the next list of uh, members who will actually be able to check that out. So book reserve, for instance, and you could then have the ISBN and the member ID.
Mm.
And when someone checks it in, we could then, well, from that, we can also have, yeah, stuff going on related to the reservations.
Yeah. Should yeah. So I was just thinking about some more properties for checked in that we might want to think about if there are more events that we want to have now, or uh, or if we want to do that later.
Yeah, so you could do something like book reservation fulfilled, for instance. Uh,
That could also be checked out. Like it kind
yeah,
of means, but
well, yeah, that's true. But you could cancel it.
yeah.
Go cancel reservation canceled.
So you can cancel it yourself, and it can be automatically canceled after a time period.
Yeah. Uh, but there is one thing that could be interesting here because people, so people could So you typically go and check out a book, and you're typically allowed to have it for a an amount of time. So let's say 2 weeks. That's the maximum time you can actually borrow something. We
Mm.
need to kind of have this concept of overdue. So typically you would have like a timer or something that runs, and kind of just a background thing that runs and say, okay, that thing is now overdue. We need to
Yeah.
fire off an event that says uh, book is now overdue. Or
Yeah. So you might have like a default overdue kind of time frame, or you might have the option to maybe you can specify that when you check out the book, or
Mm.
when you yeah, and when you reserve it as well. But maybe when you check it out, you can choose between one or several options of how long you want to rent it.
uh, question is that do we should we have an event here that says something about that we can trigger to that we can use as a notification basically to say now it's overdue.
Yeah. So what would that be?
Yes.
Chat
Um,
GPT, please.
yeah. Total brain. So what would be a good event for when the book is overdue? Okay, overdue. Book overdue. Oh, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah. And I know since our books is sometimes overdue a few times, that it might be like a warning system as well, where it gets overdue the first time, and then it's like basically yeah, you get like a notification, and
Yeah,
then you have to deliver it within like a day or two, and maybe you get like a second overdue thing, and then it triggers something else,
yeah,
and then at the end it triggers automatic a police call.
of course. Of course,
Uh,
you send the police. Yeah. Okay. The properties here might not be correct, but we'll see when we actually organize this a little bit. Are we
mm,
happy with this as a starting
yeah,
point?
yeah, I think like again, so you wouldn't do like an event modeling session in real life in this format. I think it would be much better way to have a just bigger brainstorming session, just getting a lot of more events on the plate, and then think about organizing it later. But I think in our format where we want to start implementing at the same time, I think it's nice to just have something, not too much, and then lay it out in the story, and then just start mapping it out to code. So yeah, I think this is good enough for now.
Cool. Do we want to go and do just that to actually move things over to the
Yeah.
actual event model?
Yes.
I'm a little bit wary of time. See, we've spent half an hour actually already. Time flies when you have fun.
Yes.
So we could at least let's start with the slice related to registering. Uh, So we would have a user interface. So we'll have something up here, which will then basically. doing stuff. And it didn't quite work as planned. That's no good, because this is a group which is broken.
Oh, is this some Miro template stuff?
I tried to be clever and created a thing that I thought was going to be working, and it doesn't.
Typical.
So that's no good. So typically we would have a text
I'll just
field.
I'll just do this while you're playing with that.
Yeah. So that would be like author, or let's say name of the author, and we'll have a button for, or register, not add. So I'll just keep it very simple right now. And what we could then have is so kind of a listing, author listing,
Yeah.
which would then, so that would be our read model, that this would be part of,
Yeah.
right? So that
So,
would be projected into here.
so what would the author listing be useful for in this case?
To be able to see authors that we already have. So typically, you might want to go, let's say, search for a specific author and find its, well, find an author, look at what books we have for that author,
Yeah.
because maybe someone is coming into the library and asking, well, things like
Yeah.
that.
Makes sense.
So that means we would have a some sort of data table. That's perfect. Right. What? So typically, author, the others. Yeah. So you've gone on and adding books to
Yeah.
inventory,
Jumping the gun.
jumping the gun. So that means I can copy paste my beautiful UI.
We're not afraid of copy pasting.
Oh, no. So I can go and do, so slightly, maybe there is obviously the SBN, right? And you would typically have like a, let's say a drop down to select the author, like so, right? pretty much the same. I can put that, project to that, and that would be, of course, the author. That would be a book, like so.
Sometimes Miro is a bit annoying.
You have to
Uh,
drag that one.
yeah,
The
just,
top browser part doesn't work.
I just could get it selected.
Yeah, so this is kind of just going to go on and on and on, I guess. So these are very kind of simple things. Uh, but it becomes more interesting when we actually start doing checking out, I guess.
Yeah.
We check out book. We'll get a UI where we would typically select, whoa, check out would be what book and what member. So we would have here, say something like this, member instead, like so. Beautiful UI. Uh, that's when we can kind of, oh, interesting. If we start looking about for something in this listing, one of the things that we could be, as we discussed in the beginning, is how many do we have in stock? So in stock, right? And when we then have book checked out, we would,
But, from like a user view perspective, you're not really interested in. Okay. So in stock is like a Boolean thing, like it's either in stock or not,
oh,
right?
it's a count, stock
Yeah.
count.
I would think like as a user, you're not really interested in how many books are in stock. You're interested in whether it's in stock or not.
So what we haven't talked about is who is using what part of the system right now. So that is
True.
kind of vital information. So I've been kind of thinking at it from a someone who works at the library. While
Yeah.
if you're looking at from a user who's browsing, let's say the interwebs of the library, it might be different information that I want to show.
Yeah. True. I was kind. That's a good point. So I think having that clear in the model is kind of is useful because
Yeah,
then it's not confusing. Like I was kind of assuming that it was from the lender member's perspective, but you had a different opinion. So it's nice to have that in the model.
yeah, very good point. It's again back to what a library to me is. When I was a kid, I went to the library. There was no self-service whatsoever. Everything was done by the librarian, and so that was my perspective coming into it. It's like, okay, this
Mm.
is a library system for the library, and
Uh, Perspective is a good thing.
yeah, it definitely is. But in this day and age, everything is self-service, and you hardly see people anywhere. So, so yeah. But are we good with going with my old school?
Yeah. So yeah, but we'll do it like this. So librarian view or something like that. Wrongly spelled, of course. Almost like a barbarian view.
Conan the Librarian. That's actually a Saturday Night Live sketch, I think. So
Cool. Yeah, but again, now you get like the checking out the book is kind of is that still librarian perspective or is that from the members perspective?
again, I'm old school, so there is no way a member can do this in my
Oh
head.
yeah, of course. I, I'm coming from completely different angle.
Yeah. So if someone's tuning in here, there is an age difference between Cinda and me. So I'm 6 months older.
Yeah, I think I'm older in my head.
Good point. Okay. For simplicity, I think if we can stick with the old school throughout, and then because self-service is kind of it's a very different beast in a way. So
Mm.
if we can just pretend you go to the counter, you give them your book, and you want to do this.
Mm. So this is an old school mainframe application. Cool.
Yeah, definitely yes. Yeah. So we're going to do this in COBOL today, of course,
Yes.
as you'd, as you would, right? So checking out a book, so that means also checking in, right? So you need the same kind of thing for checking it in,
Mm.
right? And that could be done from a list actually. So if we take this UI, uh, it could actually be done from a list view of books that are out, kind of, and then you would have just a let's say making the prettiest UI ever. So check in.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can do it that way.
Cool, cool. It actually just be check out, check in. Nice. And then we have the last thing was actually the reservation.
Yeah. Do you want to add that now, or should we can we do that later? Maybe
We can do that later, I guess.
we
So
still have,
again,
we still have lots of other things we want to do, but I think we can maybe start with
yeah,
implementing some of this, and we can also later think about the given events for the different slices.
yeah,
It's good to just have the flow first.
yeah. We have author, listing, book, and checkout, check-in. That should be good to start with, right?
Easy.
Easy peasy. So switching to code, we have just basically an empty scaffold of nothing. And we, if we look at features, we wanna, let's start with authors. So we add authors, and we had an event called author registered, wasn't it? Or
Yeah. Auto registered.
not. Okay, this is important. messed up on this the last time. So it'll be something like this. So author registered, and we have like a name, right? And what we did the last time, we actually introduced a concept for that. Create a concept, just like this. That's a string. We would pass that here, like so. And let's have that available. This, so that means I will change this. And we have
Can we just
event.
have the can we have the event and the command and everything in the same file? Would that be cool?
Yeah, sure. So I just took out the author name because as a concept. Maybe that is more useful to have outside.
Yeah, cool to have outside, but just to keep it like really, since these are really small things, we can easily just have it like in a single slice file, really, with the API and the command and everything.
Yeah, sure. So that would be almost what it said. Author handler, and then what we have is the just a controller base for this, and we'll stick,
Oops.
whoops, stick a route on top of it. Route authors, makes sense.
Yeah.
And what I like to do in addition is typically, well, actually, we can do, since we're single purpose, we can do this.
Oops.
What we would typically pull in them is the event log. So we want to just append events directly to the event log.
Yeah, so we're not going to do aggregates today, or for this
No,
purpose, or not for now.
not for now. There is a possibility of doing it, but there's a big benefit of not doing aggregates. So typically, if you're looking at like vertical slices and you want to have the vertical slices basically be uh, well, not coupled to something directly or indirectly, like an aggregate, depending on how you actually model the aggregates, because you could have an aggregate for the process of registration, right? So for registering an author. But often what happens is that you end up with aggregates that are more linked to the noun. So you would have like an author aggregate, and you would share that between different parts, different slices, and that actually creates coupling. So what we're doing right now is actually saying, no, we don't actually need to do that. We can um, go and just append the events. And this is a little bit back to what the Axonic guys have been coining, the whole what's it called again? Sorry,
Was
my brain melted.
uh,
I had a brain fart there.
some dynamic consistency.
Dynamic, yes, thank you. Dynamic consistency boundaries. And we have constructs that will help us achieve that. But we also do have something. So let's say if we look at the signature for append, you'll see that there's a bunch of different things that you can actually pass it. So you can pass it an event stream type, you can pass it an event stream ID, and also an event source type. And these are all labels in a way that are appended, gets to be part of the metadata of the event, enabling us to actually do this. So one thing that we do have is let's say we do event stream type, but there is a well-known event stream type called aggregate root. So let's say you want to link it to that. You could be saying event stream type dot aggregate root, and you could then just give it a string saying name of it. So let's say that would be author, right?
like this.
Yeah. Then well, you basically, we don't need the event source type for now, but event source type is a way to again, let's say you want to have a hierarchy. Let's say you had a bunch of different processes and actually a bunch of different aggregates within related to working with author. So registering could be one process, and adding books to an author, if that was a thing, that could be a process. uh, you could then have a thing that uh, kind of brought them back together because we have the event source ID that we're giving it, where actually we would, between these different aggregates, we would be sharing the event source ID. And what the event source type would then be is bringing it back and say, okay, this is related to author. So this is the event source ID related to author, and the aggregate would then be the process that you're working on. So, but I think we can just simplify it right now, and well, actually, for the time being, maybe we don't even care about the aggregate or anything like that. All of these are strings, so they can be anything. Uh, it is just basically effectively labels that we put on it. Uh, Aggregate root is a formalized type of event stream type that you can link it to. That's the only thing. So yeah, that was the educational part.
Cool.
So that's
So
pretty much all you gotta do to, again, these are optional, so we could do just this, and that would be all, basically. Well, we're adding this just for the laugh. Right. So we have a register, and what we could then do, so the natural next step, according to our event model, is to have an author, or not a record, which holds the author ID. That would be a concept that we can create, and an author name. That would be
okay,
our read model.
I'll create the ID.
Yep.
The,
And
now my dirty mind is already thinking about the different rules that we are probably going to have in the future. Like,
yeah,
so there are things that can uh, yeah, happen. Like you can have well, probably not have duplicate IDs, but what about names? Like since now the name is like the only identifier for a author,
mhm,
so I don't want to have duplicates of that. So
absolutely.
things are things that we would usually have as like business rules that's enforced on the API level, right?
Yeah. So that is a very good point. And what we would, so typically for a we can do that afterwards, actually. We add that rule. So normally we would be introducing the specs as well, for specifying them. But since we only have, well, 10 minutes left, actually, I think we can kind of show that. And we can, well, this is just a part one in a multi-part streaming series, basically. So we're going to get back to the same thing. We're just going to continue this. We're not going to do anything in between the different streams, and continue working on this sample. So what I'm doing now is basically, since we have the author read model, I now want to do a projection. I want to define a projection. So I basically used a declarative projection for this, which is the easiest. And I basically want to do then an auto map from the author registered event. Right. And
And that
that's it, really. So the next thing, and I think that is a very good point to actually make a constraint here, right?
So, like, if you didn't catch if you explained it, but the auto map basically maps the properties from the events that you want to attach to that projection and binds it to the property of the same name on the read model.
Yeah,
So
so
the
this,
from the registered event, you'd get the name of the author or automatically mapped to the name property on the read model.
yeah, and the event source ID is automatically mapped to this ID. And it's all by convention. So ID is the name, and this is also happens to be the convention of MongoDB by default as well. So it's all just magically
Can
gonna just.
can you change that convention for the ID?
Uh, well, yes and no. So right now there's no. We have this thing called a model key. That is unfortunately not supported on read models at the time being. So for now, you have to stick with ID. But we have the building blocks for it, and we'll be adding that in the future. So let me think about constraints because we said an author name should be unique. So what we can do then is actually create well, let's call it a unique author name.
So we're going for that now in the domain. We have all of the authors. They cannot just have the same name.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's a no-no.
yeah.
So a constraint is actually something that is running on the server side of Chronicle. And once we register it in, will actually be part of, well, kind of their data integrity thing. So nothing, no events can be added if it violates this constraint. So what you can do is you have the unique. So you can go and say it has to be a unique property, for instance. So on specific event, on author registered, we want to have like this. And server will say, well, do all the checks on this. And what we're basically doing here is just a declarative way of saying, well, what identifies the different properties that we're going to build a kind of an index on the server side that actually holds this unique key index, if you will. So we're basically saying from this event, you'll find that information in name. So if we would have another, let's pretend that we don't have this. So let's say we had something like this, you would do renamed as well, right? And it could also be a different property. So let's go blah, and you would have then to point it at that property. And what this ends up being is just in the index, it's basically just they're going to concatenate it or make it a string, really, because it can also be multiple properties.
I think the renamed might be like a not working example.
Yeah. So it's just a silly
Yeah.
thing. But for typically, if you have like a user registered and a user wants to change the username, you would have that. So, you would have multiple events that you would be defining that from. So you can have as many as events as you want, and you can also use multiple properties, and they will be concatenated into this one string that sits in the index. So what we basically now have is it's a kind of an end-to-end feature in this one file,
Yes.
the registering.
Yeah, so it's like it's 30 lines of code, approximately, and we were kind of done all two of the slices except for the view.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a kind of a nice achievement. Of course, it doesn't build, does it run, all of that. I don't know. That depends, I guess. So we have a Docker running with Chronicle already. So that means if I go to the implementation here and build it, Docker build. Now that's a fancy new thing. I often do Git build. I think that's even better. So if we're lucky, uh, we will at least not crash. We didn't crash. And if we go to the database, of course, we haven't done much yet. But if we look into the event store, we can see that there is a few things. We have the constraint that we created. It's a unique constraint type based off of that thing that we said. We have the projection sitting there ready to run, ready to rumble. And we have, yeah, the author registered event. So if we were to do, let's say, a postman request to, and it was a post, we did a HTTP localhost 5000 API
We,
authors
we
register.
also have Swagger, right? Open API.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. Maybe I do have that actually open here. Local hoist on Swagger.
No,
Yes,
we ASP.NET guys, we like the Swagger window.
Swagger.
Swagger.
Yes. So who is an author? Okay, let's just do it. He is an author, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So that means we should have now an event. And I'm using Mongo right now, but we do have the workbench as well. So yeah, there he is. Of course, I can show you this with the workbench as well, just to ideate it. Oh, not Bing. Let me Bing that for you. Like, so library and the sequences, and there's your author registered with the content name, all the context. So if we were to do this again, we shouldn't be allowed. Hmm.
Let's see what happens. This is just an example output thing.
Okay, but I think it
Good.
added no, no. So it didn't actually add an event. Uh, hmm. It did the right thing, but
We were expecting response.
yes, not sure why. I will definitely dive into that. But okay, it did the right thing, but didn't return the response we were expecting. So definitely uh, delivered on the promise. And what we can actually also see here is the metadata that we put in, and we see the event stream type is an aggregate root, and the event stream ID is author. So if you wanted to change this in the future to actually use aggregates, you could, but you are then kind of, for them to be linked together, you would need to use the same name for your aggregate. I think that is pretty much what we had time for today, since we are, well, we've scoped it to an hour.
Yeah, that's what we planned. So next time it will be more time for coding since we haven't completed the all of the slices and we haven't done any given one dance. So 1
Yeah,
hour. See how far we get then.
definitely.
And production ready, right?
Yeah, of course, straight to production, as we do. That's how
Yeah.
we, that's how we roll, of course. Okay,
Cool.
well, right on time. So thank you very much for watching this. And I'm pretty sure we'll be back in T minus 1 week, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's not right. I'm in Paris at that time, so I won't be doing
Ooh.
any.
Okay. Now that, so that means T minus 2 weeks.
So You can choose to do it alone, or you can bring along another dude. Maybe someone that has never touched any of this, and see how fast he learns it.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, next week, come to think of it, I'm actually traveling myself. So didn't think ahead.
No,
Uh,
no, next.
no, next week, but T
Yeah.
minus 2 weeks, we'll be back and yeah, have more stuff. Okay, so thank you and see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.